Hi everyone. Son with Sun Fun Kits. So, man, is this video needs to be made. Apparently, we have stirred up a hornet's nest from one of our very early videos. Grade A versus Grade B, or supposedly Grade A versus Grade B. So, hopefully, this video can address some of the problems. All right, so we'll begin. One of our customers had bought a kit from us. They already had their cells. It was a V3 ready to build kit, ready to provide your own cells kit, where we sent the BMS and everything. And they emailed us and said, "Hey, your BMS sucks. It doesn't work, doesn't discharge, doesn't anything." We're like, "Okay, send it in. We'll look at it." And we send a replacement in. A few weeks later goes by, same problem, does not work. This thing sucks. You guys are scammed. Blah blah blah. So we RMA-ed it again. So now he's had two BMSs. I'm assuming it's a he. His name is Mike. Oops. Oh, well, we'll just say Mike. And again, on the second BMS, which is now actually the third BMS, I'm having a problem. It doesn't work. What's going on? And he said, "You know what, guy, you're doing something wrong. Send this. I don't know what you're doing." He's like, "Look, I will send you what I have, and if you fix it, I'll pay you to build it in whatever time you spend." I said, "Normally we don't do that, but you know what? I'm curious. You're on your third BMS, and it still doesn't work, so send us over." So I did ask them, "Look, if we're going to spend all this time, maybe you want to make a video about it to see what we find." And he's like, "That's fine." All right. So they have 4 cells here. They bought them from Alibaba, from a seller, well-known seller. They've been doing it probably since 2019. I covered their names up because I don't want to start a freaking fight with them. I'm sure they've got agents working for them, and they start going on YouTube and recruiting their buddies to go on and go off. So we'll just say Alibaba seller, person bought them 4. They bought these, I think, in October of last year, October 2021. So let's kind of go over what they have. All right, so they got one. This looks like it was made in January 2021. This looks like it was made in April of 2020. This looks like it was made in January 2021. And this looks like it was made in March of 2020. So right off the bat, obviously these didn't come really from the same batch. Physically, they don't look too bad. Not sure what kind of what this is. This looks like some adhesive someone put on there, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But physically, they look okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is get these top balanced, and then find out what's going on. So we're gonna do a couple of tests. We're gonna do some individual discharge tests, and we're gonna do some charge tests, and we'll try to find out if we can find what's going on. Is it just because the BMS happened to be problematic 3 times in a row, or something going on with these cells? So hang tight. It's going to be a long video, so we'll just start getting things one at a time and just sort of seeing what we find, from that point. Okay. So we have these all connected in parallel. By the way, check out our nifty balancing cable. What do you think of that? It's got 4 10-gauge red wires and 4 10-gauge black wires. And what this allows you to do is, if you have a situation where your cells are in a case where they crisscross, you won't need to take them out your case. Just unbolt your bus bars, and then you can attach like negative, crisscross them around. So yeah, it's a pretty nifty little thing. Let us know if you'd like us to offer this for sale. It's not going to be it's not going to be cheap. It takes a long time to build it, but it's a very cool diagnostic tool. So we're going to let this charge. A probably charge it as high as 200 amps, but I don't like how hot these things get, so I'm gonna keep it around 60 to 70 amps. Just, nice slow charge, and let these things kind of just get nice and evenly charged. So set this thing to like 50 amps. I guess we can go to 60 amps. So 60 divided by 3, 60 divided by 4. So each cell's getting about 15 amps. That's a nice, happy charge. Should slowly bring them up, so make sure they're fully, properly charged. Now you could go higher, but then you risk this, it takes longer to charge. And, even though our power supply can go at up to 200 amps, yeah, they make power supplies that do 200 amps at really low voltages. They're not cheap, but it makes perfect sense for what we're doing. We're just going to let these things slowly charge up all the way, and once they're basically about where they need to be, we'll be in a good shape, and then we can start doing individual cell tests to see what's going on. All right. So before we begin, just want to go over a bit of our testing setup. We've got two V-Sense wires. They're using 12 gauge wires with clips, and they're connected to our V-Sense ports. And we don't really use V-Sense all that much for quick tests, but this seems to what everyone has said is the problem that they didn't like. We also made dual 6 gauge wires. These are silicone wires, and they should be able to provide up to 300 amps. It's about 18 inches long. No Anderson connector. They're straight. So this should also eliminate the problem that some people had saying, hey, the Anderson connector is causing resistance, or Anderson style. So these two are going to be what we have. So we're going to perform some tests, but just wanted to kind of go over the sort of baseline so that everyone is understanding everything is good, and then this is how we're going to test it. All right. Okay, so for the cell test, I'm actually going to do some voiceover. I was taking the video over the phone, and it was really close to the machine, so we picked up a lot of fan noise. But anyway, we got the cables hooked up. They're nice and secure. You can see V-Sense cables up top. And we're just going to test. So this was one of the cells that was giving a little bit of issue when we were charging. It was taking forever, so we wanted to test this first. So you can see we go into the system, and we show you that the remote sense is on. So it's reading 3.393, which is almost full. I mean, they're never going to be 3.65 straight off the charger. I mean, lithium iron phosphate will settle in. So we did a 50-watt test, and it's like nothing. It's only drawing 15 amps, so the cell's gonna pretty much hold voltage. Even the worst of the worst cells in the world will hold voltage at just a 50-watt test. Remember, we're doing a watt test, which is amps times volts. So it's important because we look at both. Okay? And cell seems to bounce back up as if nothing happened, which, like I said, pretty much every cell in the world, unless it's just has holes in it, is going to pretty much behave the same way. So then we up the wattage. Let's see here. Sorry, the wires are in the way. I know it's not a good angle, but we had to do it because of the silicone wires. But anyway, now we're going to do a 100-watt test. And in the 100-watt test, we start, and let's see here. And we can see this is not good. At 30 amps already, the cells dropped to below 3.2 volts. That's never a good sign. This is a very, very low load. It's like almost a tenth of a C. So this is a little concerning, and initial expectations that we're saying that this is probably not going to be a very good sell, you know. So we let it run for a little while, see if the voltage jumps back up, but the voltage doesn't. So we'd stop it. Now it does bounce back to like 3.3, and if you didn't know any better, you'd say okay. But understand, a lot of your grade B vendors, that's why they always tell you do a 30 amp or a 40 amp test, because they never test watt hours. They only test amps, and it allows them to hide. So we go to a 200 watt test next, and I think this is going to be too much for that cell. So this is a 200 watt test, and we're now well below the threes. So we're in the 2.7, 2.6 range, and at 73 amps, which again, you may never get. If your setup never sees 74 or 76 amps, you may never actually see this happening. But I know some people that have a really aggressive BMS cutoff. It may even cut off the BMS because now we're already at 2.6 volts. So if you've got a very aggressive BMS cutoff, it's going to cut off, your battery. So this is definitely not good, and this is a sign of a very bad cell. Now notice how it doesn't jump straight up to 3.3 like it did the last few tests. It takes a little while, and that's probably because there's some shorts or internal craziness happening, which is why it's like slowly ramping up, back to 3.3. But like all cells, they'll jump back to 3.3. Which is why a lot of your grade B sellers always just put the two voltage prongs and say, see, it's a perfect cell. And they always tell you to test them at 40 amps because it allows them to hide all these other potential problems. So we're going to crazy. We're going to go do a 300 watt test, which we really should not do, but just to kind of show you what's going on. And now we're well below in the very low twos, maybe upper ones. This is not good at all. It's already having to provide 150, 160 amps, and it's dropping. So this is really bad. Um, no, I mean, this is a garbage grade cell. That's just the way it is. No two ways about it. Never should be used in a pack. And this is probably the cell that was the reason now their BMS was going to low voltage cutoff and high voltage cutoff, for all the things that they were trying to do. So that's going to be that. We're not going to do any more tests for that. And watch how slowly it takes the voltage to ramp back up. So something's definitely up. It eventually works its way, does get back to 3, but that probably kicked the cell's teeth so hard, it's probably its head spinning trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So we're not going to do any more watt tests on this cell. That is enough to let us know that this cell is definitely problematic. So we'll then go on to sort of the next one. And I think, yeah. And eventually we'll go up to 3.3 or whatever. So now we're going to move to cell number 2 here. And same thing last time. Got the cables in place. They're tight. VSense cables are installed. And showing 3.38, which again is basically full. And just to show you guys again, VSense is on. So this one I think is going to be okay because it didn't have any issues when we were charging. So we might jump slightly higher to start off with. So we actually started off with a 200 watt test from the get go. And you can see it's pulling 62 amps and 3.2, 3.1. I mean, it's a fair sell. Um, and most people buying grade B would probably be like, hey, yeah, our cells are great. They hold voltage. Um, and this is probably true for the average, grade B cell that's out there. Like cell one doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. I'd say you have like a 1 to 5% chance you get a cell like cell one, but probably you get about, I would say, 70 to 80% of chance when you buy grade B you're gonna get a cell like this. So we're gonna now jump to 400 watts. That's probably a little higher than what most people do, and we're up to 137 amps, and voltage is 2.9. Again, most people probably will never hit the cell this hard, and but you know, for a grade B, it's a fair grade B. Ideally, the voltage should still be above the threes, but as far as we were concerned, we would say, yeah, this is a passing grade B cell. Okay, so that's enough to basically let us know that this cell's probably going to be okay. We're in the upper threes to four, but understand, look, it's a little sluggish coming back to voltage, which is not perfect, but not really ideal. It does get back, and and then it just kind of jumps a little bit. And again, our V-Sense cables might be contributing to this or whatnot. What we did notice when we had it without V-Sense, the voltage would come immediately, whereas the V-Sense kind of plays around. But so a little bit of that might just be V-Sense. But just for kicks, we're gonna just do a 500 watt test just to kind of see, and this is where we kind of see, all right, this is kind of breaking the grade B a little bit. And yeah, now we're below 3. So you never really want to do it. But again, we're pulling 185 amps, which most people never do. But this is sort of the breaking point of a typical grade B that we would normally see, is when we start pushing 500 watts through it and it's pushing over 150, 160 amps. That's when you start seeing the voltage really get. I mean, ideally, you never really want your voltages, below 3 in actual use. So that's and we can sort of see that it takes a little longer for the cell to jump back to the 3.3 volts. Normally, when it's like a low load, they just snap right back to their 3.3 or 3.2, whatever. But when they have somewhat a questionable cell, or somewhat grade B, they take a little longer. So, but eventually it will sort of, like I say, just even like the very first cell, it eventually is going to get back to 3.3. So overall, we would say decent grade B, not great, but not bearable, but about what we would expect. Cell number 3. So just like the cells previously, we got the cables all set up, and we're gonna go in the menu, show you that the V-Sense is turned on, and I accidentally went to the system menu. We actually going to go to the config menu, show your remote sense is turned on, and alright, so I go back. And we're just going to start with a 200 watt test. That's if it fails 200, we'll go below to see where it is. But 200 watts is a good way for us to kind of quickly identify what's going on. Okay, this is actually very good. It's keeping it almost 3.3 volts, 3.29, pulling 60 amps. That's a very good sign. That's basically what an EV grade does. So let me see what we can do. Let's push it up really hard. Let's push it 500. See if it breaks. Nope. It's keeping 3.2 even at 153 amps. This is an excellent grade B cell. I would almost say EV grade. So as far as we're concerned, this is passed. There's really no reason to continue testing this. As far as we're concerned, this is perfect. And look at the volts. Good. Alright, on to the last cell, the fourth cell. Alright, 3.36, fairly decent, I would say, almost fully charged. Um, and again, showing you remote sense is turned on, we'll get out of here and let's just basically see what happens. Alright, so we start off with a 200 watt test just like last time. This is going to be a quick way for us to find out what's going on. And yeah, I would say doing fairly well actually. Um, just like the other grade B cell, I would say this is not bad at all. It's holding well. Hold on, it is starting to kind of well. No, it's still decent. I would say it's good. Yeah, this is a good sell. I don't see any problem with that. I mean, it's almost even great. It's a little lower on the three on the twos that we would like to see. We really want to keep that, but I don't like the fact that it keeps dropping voltage. So we're gonna do some more tests on there and maybe try a different load to see what it is. I mean, it should have been able to carry 3.29 the whole way, and but I mean, look, the voltage snapback is good. That's always good. A healthy cell will snap back almost instantaneously. So I mean, that is good. So I guess what we're gonna do next is maybe go a little higher. Um, yeah, let's just get crazy. Let's hit 500 watt. It's probably gonna be a little too much, but what the heck? We'll just hit it. Okay. And like the previous cell was able to handle it, so maybe this one is gonna be able to handle it too. No. Yeah, you never want to see it go below the threes. So this one is not as good as the previous one. I mean, it's the same as about cell two, which, and I guess for the average grade B, that's kind of what you would expect. But I mean, we're in the 180, 100, 79 amp range. So this is about the average grade B that we see, or that we don't deal with them anymore. But when customers have a problem, they'll send their cells in, and we'll test them. This is the quintessential grade B cell as far as we're concerned. But one thing it is notice, you see how they kind of jumps the voltage back up. So it's not as bad as cell number two. Certainly not as good as cell number three. Somewhere in the middle. But again, most of you will never have, never see this. So, you're never going to be pushing 170 amps for most of your what you're doing. So maybe the argument could be, hey, well, we're never going to be in this range. Oh yeah, I mean, see how it is. I mean, it's not. It's definitely better than cell number two, I would say, but not as good as cell number three. So yeah, and we'll just basically stop. There's no point in going forward for the test. Okay, so if we tested all these grade B cells, well, what's the difference between that and a grade A cell? All right, well, since you guys want to see it, here it is. This is one of our, I guess you could call it, new old stock. 280Ns, they stopped making them like last year, but we still have some left over, for spares or some projects. But let's show you what you can do with an EV grade. Okay, and we're going to max out our DC electronic load. All right, so we'll do a start off very slowly, 50 watt, which yeah, I know, dumb, but you can see it's like almost nothing, and so yeah, I don't know why we just did that. So let's go to 100 watt, and 30 amps, 3.3. Whatever, doesn't really affect the cell at all. Okay, so let's start getting to some bigger numbers. So we'll do a 200 watt test. Okay, see, 60 amps, still holding 3.3. Hasn't even dipped below 3.3 at 60 amps. All right, so let's start getting higher. Sorry, went out of focus. A 300 watt test, still above 3.3. 300 watts. Okay. Let's go to 500 watts. Now this is the highest that we tested the grade Bs with. Okay. And all of them sort of broke 3.3. And we kind of went below, And like I said, that's when I was saying that I think cell number 2 that we tested on that grade B was pretty impressive. But now let's get into some big numbers. 700 watts off of a single prismatic cell. Alright, check it out. 214 amps. 3.2 volts. Most of you will never hit that with your little BMSs. But we're not done yet. This is almost going to finish off our electronic load, which is a 250 amp load. You saw the unreg blip for saying it. 246 amps, and we still are not breaking 3.2 volts. That, my friends, is what an EV grade is. It's going to push it all the way to the extremes. So, there you go. All right. So we tested all 4 cells. And the results are about what we expected. What actually surprised us was this one. This thing, despite being one of the older cells made in March of 2020, was actually the best performing cell that they got in their entire pack. So yeah, in fact, if all grade Bs were like this, the heck with that. Just this is all we'd carry. But this thing was also in the pack, and this is actually a newer cell. This is a 2020 January 2021. It was the worst performing by far. Even though during charging it was fine, it was very strange. During charging, it ramped up fine. It didn't have any problems when it was discharging. But when it was charging. But when it came to discharging, this thing sucked. I don't know. This is the one that we had problems with charging. It didn't like charging over 60 amps. It would just peak out. I don't know what the deal was. But again, we don't have V-Sense in the charger, so some might say, oh, the terminals are bad. But I mean, that's as smooth as we're going to get it. But it did okay. Unless you're pulling like over 150, 160 amps, you're probably not going to have a problem with it. And this was probably what most grade Bs that we normally test are. They're not bad. It was okay. Held charge, only really saw big degradation at high amps over 150, 160, which most people never get, so they're okay. So I would say the person had 3 cells that were probably decent, but since he had this cell in his pack, this caused all the mess. And that is what you will find when you buy grade B. It's a complete random mess. Now, I understand people are going to be like, well, he just got one bad cell. Okay, I'll give you that. But what's the guarantee you're not going to get that cell next time? Because all these 4, you know what? They came out of the same pile. They bought them at auction, and that's what you get. Some cells had sat for a while. They couldn't move them, so they bundled them together. And that's the chance you run with grade B. You are all over the place. And that's why some of the vendors always tell you, oh, do a 10 amp discharge or do a 20 amp discharge to get full capacity. Just complete BS. What's going to happen is you put it on load, one of the things in a trigger is going to cut off, and that is going to be causing some issues. So this is gonna be the last word for us for grade A versus grade B. I think we've done more than enough, and if people don't believe it, then I don't really care. Go on believing what you'd like to believe. But understand, you might have tested 4, maybe 8, 12, 16, 32 cells. I personally have tested over 1,000. So we can never sell this type of stuff to our customers. It's all over the place, you know, and our customers are using these to power air conditioners and coffee pots and stuff like that. I mean, what the heck would this be? It's just, it's not an acceptable strategy to sell this, and that's why they have them in China, because they know that you can't return these. What are you going to do? Return them? You can't. As far as they're concerned, if 70 to 80% of their customers get decent sales, they've done their job. The other 20, well, that's just the way life goes. And that's, as far as Chinese business, that's good enough. That they're never going to be the level of a company in the West that understands customer service and stuff like that. To them, they're like, if most people are happy and a few people are unhappy, that's perfectly fine with okay. And that's really how a lot of Eastern way of thought is, that, some people are just going to get screwed, and for as far as they're concerned, that it's okay. So we actually talked to the customer. We're actually going to keep these cells here, and we gave them a discount on some 280K cells, so they're going to rebuild that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with their BMS. The BMS was fine, but I felt like this video was important. It's a long video, it's going over probably 30-40 minutes, but this is what people were asking and doing, and understand. I mean, we see this every day. Day in, day out, we get these things, and we got to diagnose them. And so when we, make these claims, it's not just to hurt, grade B sellers or whatnot. It's because, we know what happens when you actually put them in use, and that is something that you will probably never experience unless you actually push these batteries. And understand, we sell way more kits than we sell ready-made batteries. So buy all the grade Bs you want to your heart's content. That's fine. Buy the kits from us. We're happy. Speaking of strictly margins, our margins are much better selling kits than cells. Cells we're sort of sold because our pre-built batteries will always use certified automotive grade, and the other stuff will basically be for people that are enthusiasts that just want really good stuff. But it's an option that you can have there, and depending on what you like, I mean, it can go either or. So hope that is it. Hope you're satisfied with it. If you're still unhappy, or you're saying, oh, you did this, you did that, I'm sorry. We got other things to do. There's no trying to convince you. If you're a grade B warrior, you're going to keep fighting the battle, and I just have no desire. So, okay. Thank you.